um, publicly accessible web page that share a single domain name. Websites can be created and maintained by individuals, groups, businesses, or organizations to serve a variety of purposes. And second, eating disorders are a series of psychological conditions that lead to unhealthy habits. This disorder can begin with an obsession with food, weight, or body shape. Um, then, eating disorders occur most often in industrialized cultures where there is an emphasis of thinness, especially if thinness is linked to success. Magazines, television, and other media have created an unrealistic image of perfect, successful person. The pressure to be thin can lead to intense dieting, even in very young children, which can turn into an eating disorder in people who are more likely predisposed to get the disorder. Um, uh, Eating disorders can cause an some of example. Eating disorder can cause an obesity that can cause some that affects the eye. These problems lead to obesity to children or children are overweight, unhealthy, unfit. A higher risk of disease, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, a strength of hospitals, or they will be a burden on hospitals in the future. Um, by this, it concludes that the proliferation of eating disorder should not be a public spectacle because it involves mental health disorder if a page is enabled, such as even involving an eating disorder, mental health disorder can spread indirectly because people who view or access the page may be inspired to follow this action, to follow this action that can bring bad effect, that bad impact, and the government, the government, uh, the government can track websites that provide proliferation of eating disorder to ban them, uh, and also based on some of the adverse effects I have mentioned in my speech. Uh, in my speech, therefore, I strongly believe that this motion should not we should not stand this motion, but this house would ban websites that enables proliferation of eating disorders. Thank you.
Okay. Time spent by the first speaker of the opening government is 3 minutes 34 seconds. I repeat, 3 minutes 34 seconds. Okay, to oppose the case from the government, let us invite the first speaker of the opening opposition, Ms. Hijrah. Time is yours.
So right now, I will talk a motion about this house would ban social media that enables the proliferation of eating disorders. Before I read my argument, I want to say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, I disagree with this house will ban social media that enables the proliferation of eating disorders. Why? Because why should it be banned if because it makes someone obsession with being thin or skinny, or that interferes with someone eating or eating disorders? Well, it is their right to want to be thin. We don't need to ban social media because of that, but it's better to avoid when people who have a disordered mood not to be seen or inspired. I know on social media there are a lot of thin people. That's why people have eating disorders are inspired to be like them. As I said earlier, that we should ban them to see if then we ban the social media. And that's all my argument. Thank you.
Okay, time spent by the first speaker of the opening opposition is 1 minute 68 seconds. I repeat, 1 minute 60. I'm sorry. Time spent by the first speaker of the opening opposition is 1 minute 38 seconds. I repeat, 1 minute 38 seconds. Okay, next to close the case for the opening government, let us invite the second speaker of the opening government. Miss Debbie, time is yours.
For example, so I'm a video of Prime Minister, and now, I will mention about the Prime Minister says that why the government should will ban website that enables proliferation of eating disorder because eating disorder are not good things that shouldn't be shown. There, there, we shape that this action can invite bad effects for our health, and this also can invite people to follow bad habits indirectly. So um, so the proliferation of eating disorder cause an obesity that can cause some bad effects that are, for example, children obesity, like the effects, there's problems to obesity, or children are overweight, unhealthy, and unfit. This this very this very impact for our future generation because maybe the children uh, never get a long life. Thank you.
Okay, time spent by the second speaker of the opening government is 2 minutes 20 seconds. I repeat, 2 minutes 20 seconds. Okay, the next to close the case for the opening opposition, please welcome the second speaker of the opening opposition, Mr. Devo. Time is yours.
Before I'm going to say my arguments, I am going to give a point of rebuttal. The deputy, my past speeches, or the deputy or prime minister said that eating disorders are not good things. Well, yes, we know eating disorders are not good things, but as we all know, in websites that proliferate eating disorders, well, if someone sees that website, that does not mean when someone sees that website they just become eating disorder. No, sometimes the most of time they will not become eating disorder just by seeing the website. So I'm going to into my argument. As the opposition side of the house, we disagree with this motion because of a few things. First is we believe that this is no urgency. Why? Because if we because even if this website is proliferating eating disorder, well, that's the effect. Well, what's the effect of people seeing it? Like just now I said, if they see it, will they become? Will they change into becoming eating disorder? I don't think so. So these websites we do know this website exists, but the status quo that is in here can fix it. What I mean by the status quo of now is that nowadays there are so many influencers or celebrity who doesn't have an ideal body, like where in the like for example there is a recent news where an influencer who has uploaded a picture of herself without any clothes to show that she is not really slim and she has a fat fold Yes, POI.
Don't you think that everyone's want to follow the trend of social media and what's not?
And that's the point. In social media, they normally people like to get on the trend that slim body or good body, right? But now there is a few influencers that that send a message to their uploads to love ourselves with any condition. Like just now, like just now I said, Tara Basro, who uploads herself without any clothes to show that she is not to show that she does not have a slim body. She has a fat fold. And other influencers do these kinds of message like Deddy Corbuzier like any other things. What is the meaning of this is that about loving yourself, like I said, about loving yourself, be happy with who you are, and because of this we don't think we need to do anything to about this proliferation of eating disorder. But there is another bad things in social media or websites, that is like pornography, profanity, and other else that is negative, because those things are more urgent than this, because this problem of eating that enables the proliferation of eating disorder, the status quo will fix it, and that is why I believe this motion should fall. Thank you.
Okay, time spent by the second speaker of the opening opposition is 3 minutes 51 seconds. I repeat, 3 minutes 51 seconds. Before the next one, I just want to reminder that your camera should be ya lebih kelihatan kalian dan meja kalian. Dava bisa tolong dinyalakan kameranya?
Sudah nyala?
Oke,
Nyala.
thank you. Next, to open the case from the closing government, I would like to invite the first speaker of the closing government, Mr. Firza. Time is yours.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Is there any like noise about like kipas angin? Adakah? Or like it's okay? It's audible. Clear.
It's okay.
Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Closing government want to ban a social media platform that proliferates eating disorder at the end of the day. What proliferations means in this debate is that making this trend, making this kind of videos, for example, or making this kind of narrative popular in the social media by its algorithm and whatsoever. We want to ban this kind of social media. Our goal is for better eating behaviors and better effect and whatsoever about food industry and whatsoever, right? Mechanisms to make this stance clear, right? First of all, how we are going to ban this time, right? When there is a website that proliferate it, make it trending and whatsoever, we will crack down and ban this kind of social media from our countries until they will not proliferate it again. For example, they change their algorithm to make this is not trending anymore, for example, right? So I don't think so. It will be temporary until this platform changes to be a better platform that does not proliferate this anymore. The second of all, will not ban the medical explanations about this, for example, like medical explanation about eating disorder and whatsoever. We will not banning it because it's not proliferating it. It in fact discouraging it in the first place because it is explaining the bad things that will happen if you do eating disorder, ladies and gentlemen. Before going to my extension, there is several engagements towards opposition. First of all, they say that this is the rights to express themselves and you know, like this is how about they are being positive about themselves, accepting themselves, and etc. First, exactly, that isn't what we want, right? Moreover than that, I want to frame that this debate is not about body positivity in the end of the day. I think body positivity still exists in our house, but the eating disorder in no, like not normal behavior in eating your food is actually what we want to ban, right? This is not a debate about body positivity at the end of the day, right? But first of all, how rights can be you know, can be not how rights can be limited at the end of it, right? I think rights can be limited when two things happen. The first is it is harming yourself. Exactly, eating disorder is in and of itself harming yourself. So we want to ban it so that they know that this is false. This is false at the end of the day. That this is, we want to spread the narrative that that we ban this social media because they proliferate for this kind of behaviors, and that's why I think they will evaluate themselves that yeah, what they will at least bruise about how then the bad effect about, you know, like doing eating abnormally like that, for example. Or second of all, rights can be banned when it harms other people. Exactly the moment people actually watch you eating so much mukbang and ASMR becoming trending in YouTube whatsoever, people tend to follow it, right? And I think the eating disorder in and of itself is going to be harmful. It's going to make people obese and whatsoever. I think in principle, rights of self can be limited at the end of the day, right? But second of all, they say that this is inspiring to other people. Exactly, this is what we want to avoid in our case because it's inspiring people to actually have the behaviors that are abnormal and going to harm them, right? Two substantive in the extensions, right? First, why I think choice can be limited in our house, right? It's two layers analysis, right? First layer, why then is going to harm other people? OG never mechanized about how then this kind of behaviors will influence other people, right? They never explain to you about that. I will mechanize this in my case. We see a trend in social media that this will be that this eating disorder becoming a trend, for example, that, you know, mukbang becoming trend and whatsoever at the outfit, right? Moreover than that, I think people this is becoming popular, and then people will tend to like follow this because people will tend to, you know, love to being acknowledged. So that's why they will try to follow their trend. They try to make a YouTube channel about mukbang and ASMR, going to at the end of the day going to harm them, right? Second of all, I think this trend is going to be harmful. For example, like I think first of all, people will try to opt in into eating disorder, for example. So they will try to like doing this in their life, trying the challenges and whatsoever about super spicy food, for example. In study cases, for example, in America, when Carolina Reaper, super spicy chili is becoming trending at the end of the day, people try it, right? People try eating that, for example, right? That makes a lot of people getting a lot of disease, for example, because their body could not handle Carolina Reaper. Even some of them are dying because of eating super spicy food that they see in social media, for example, or for example, people that are being obese because they are obsessed with mukbang and whatsoever. They try it, or they try to follow the trend online and then habituated by that eating behavior, for example, that make them obese, for example, that create them that make them, for example, getting diabetes, for example, like heart attack, for example, because of their heart pressure that is going to be high and whatsoever. This is going to be important because this is going to harm people. It's going to like harm the instrumentality of people. So that's why I think the limit can be choices can be limited, right? Second layer, how then mitigations, for example, like disclaimer that this is not for everyone, mukbang is not for everyone, are not enough. I think for two reasons. First, I think people right now cares more or becoming famous rather than rationalizing their act, because being famous has become the aspirations today, that has become the goals of many people at the end of the day. So that's why I think people will not care about this kind of disclaimer. And moreover than that, I think people will not follow the disclaimer because people will be curious at the end of the day. They will try to make it anyway. That's why I think the true solutions to this is only banning the platform, right? But second extension here, how then is going to create an environmental impact? Look, the problem right now in the world is food waste, right? I think food waste like impacts environment, and sea becoming intoxicated, the air becoming intoxicated because of the manufacturing processes that harms the air, right? Because of food production, manufacturing industry harms the air, for example, because this happens because of overproductions that happens. Overproduction happens because of the demand that society has, right? I think in their house, there will be like many mukbang, and there will be many demands on the production of this kind of food at the end, right? Exactly, it's going to be overproduction going to happen under their house. At the end of the day, is going to create a lot of environmental impact. This industry will much more likely have manufactured a lot that they harm the air, harm the sea, for example. Or for example, people who throw out their food because they are buying too much food because they trying to follow the trend and they cannot do it, for example. So it's also going to create food waste that is going to be much. Why this is especially important? This is important because sea getting intoxicated, for example, also harm human, also harm the indigenous people in the forest, for example. Their forest getting bad, for example, because of this. Or for example,
Sorry, time's up. Firza, I'm sorry, your time's up. Okay. Okay, time spent by the speaker of the closing government is 7 minutes 20 seconds. I repeat, 7 minutes 20 seconds. Next, to open the case from the closing opposition, I would like to invite the first speaker of the closing opposition, Mr. Hezlan. Time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will start by giving some of my rebuttals about the previous speaker. That when a website there is trending, it will shut down. Well, what happens if someone already seen it? that they will see it, and they yeah, what happen if they already seen it? They will read it, and they will not notice it right away before it will shut down. So uh, now I'm going to bring up some of my arguments that this house would ban social website that enables the proliferation of eating disorders. I disagree with this motion because why would we ban this type of website? We can't ban this type of website. If government they ban this type of website, then they will make another website that is exactly the same, like about eating disorders again. So every second or minute, a new website keep appearing. So how are they going to ban this website or social media as well about mukbang? I mean about eating disorder. They keep appearing. The government said that they will ban it and shut it down. But what if there is another website about eating disorders again and again and again? They won't. We cannot stop. They cannot stop. So how are they going to ban this website if it keeps appearing? We can't stop or banning people's website if it kept appearing. So it's useless. It's useless to ban website about eating disorders. Um, what can we do? What can we do if we cannot control people? We can we can we can stop people from making more website disorders. So that is all my argument. Thank you.
Okay, time spent by the first speaker of the closing opposition is 3 minutes 27 seconds. I repeat, 3 minutes 27 seconds. Next, to close the case from the closing government, I would like to invite the second speaker of the closing government, Mr. Deva. Time is yours.
Okay, wait. Check. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. If you want to be unmute yourself because I will not able.
Wait, kamu agak nge-lag deh kayaknya. Like now I can't even process your video capture properly.
I'm lagging. is lagging or not? Because my connection is unstable.
Panitia gimana nih? I think he's trying to say that kalau dia sekalian pakai video, like he can't transmit his signal very well gitu loh.
Kalau misalkan turn off his camera bisa. Deva?
Dava, try speaking with your video off.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for the participant and the adjudicators because one of the participant was having a connection problem. So we will give them 15 minutes to join the chamber again. If they want join in 15 minutes, we will continue the debate without the speaker. Bisa
Dava
di
DJ kah, Kak?
ya?
Dava DJ kah?
I guess
Yeah, okay.
the
Can I
participants
iron
number
somehow?
swing ya, nggak apa-apa sih kalau swing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can iron, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will iron. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Let's throw closing opposition out in this debate, right? Closing opposition's case is basically trying to tell that a lot of people actually try this kind of website will actually pop up anyway and try to reform anyway. First of all, I don't think this is true because I think making websites in of itself need budget, right? I don't think these individuals are going to try going to, for example, making website again, because making website in and of itself need IT, for example, need a lot of budget. They have to buy the domain, for example. So I don't think they will pop up anyway. They will at least like they would have less budget, for example. But second of all, even if they pop up, why I think we can still ban it, right? I think the ones as the actor in this debate, this house would meaning that the actor that we are trying to tell the POV is from the government. And I think government have a lot of IT teams, have even the Ministry of Informations, for example. So I think people can crack down this website even if it's like popping up again, right? So I'm going to have two clash in this debate. The first clash is why then it's going to be harmful for individuals. The second clash about how this is going to be harmful on the macro scales at the end of the day, right? And on especially in environmental issue, right? First clashes. I think in my speech, I already told to you that this has becoming a trend. This has becoming very like very persuasive to people, that people tend to follow that trend at the end of the day, right? So that's why I think the cases that opening oppositions have, which is I think this is their right, this is their expression whatsoever, I think is going to be outweighed, because the harm in the principle of utilitarianism will be much. For example, people who are getting obesity, for example, so people who are that sick for a long years, that harm their productivity, for example, they cannot go to their work, for example, because there is and they cannot do their work properly, for example, because of the obesity that currently happens. Or second of all, the challenges that exist, right? I think the many challenge in the, for example, in the YouTube, for example, or in many social media, Instagram, TikTok, whatsoever, is pretty much dangerous. Like eating super spicy food, eating a thing that is going to be harmful. Just it's so crazy enough that people will much more likely die from it, right? For example, in American trend in the past, there is coronary reports trend, which people are actually dying because trying to eat coronary reports at the end of the day. There is some cases that people going to die from that. This is will make people die, right? So I think the trend is in and of itself harmful. Therefore, rights can be limited. Not only that it's harmful to other people, it's harmful for the people in and of itself that having an eating disorder. How these people will change under my side? Because we ban this, right? We ban the social media. Of course, it will be making right? My speech already told you about that, right? I think that when the moment has become booming, that social media getting banned because of banning, eating disorder behaviors or proliferations of these actions, for example, and that's why it will, for example, make these people kind of evaluate, for example, why this is bad. I think these people much more likely search about that at the end of the day, right? These people much more likely look for why this is banned because only this eating disorder, for example. I think people who are not aware that eating disorder is harmful, that their body experience that, like they are people who are having an eating disorder, but yet they don't understand that they are, having that kind of problems in their body, for example, will tend to search for that and will, I think, move, for example, to be better. For example, this is better for the individuals at the end of the day, will make it better. Moreover than that, when this social media actually reform under my side, is going to make the social media, for example, are evaluating, and the trend or the video, the postings about the post about the food, for example, food trend, for example, much more likely switch towards the more healthy or at least normal, right? So I think this will create the narrative that this is the normal way of eating, or this will make the popular things is healthy eating, for example, that is proportionate and not actually that small, not eating a small amount or too much amount like mukbang, ASMR, whatsoever. And that's why I think will move individuals who are, making individuals who are more having a healthy life. On second class though, how then it will create environmental change. My speech already talked to you about that. There is no response at all. So I'm very sad as a whip, right? I think it will create a lot of impact on individuals, right? Because it will increase the demand on food supply chain, for example. Like there will be an industrialization and more industrializations in terms of food producing and whatsoever. That's going to harm the air, for example, and harm the sea, for example. That is very important, right? It will harm the indigenous people, for example. It will harm the people in third world countries, for example. Their source are becoming there is a shortage of food because food is going to be imported towards the country that is already first world, for example. Like the OG characterized to you that the most likely countries are the industrialized countries, right? Which is the developed countries, for example. I think the impacts on the vulnerable actor must be prioritized in this debate, and that's why I think the environmental impact should be way more than anything. That's why we win this debate very proudly to propose.
Oke, sudah. Okay, time spent by the second speaker of the closing government is 6 minutes. I repeat, 6 minutes. Next, to close the case from the closing opposition, I would like to invite the second speaker of the closing opposition, Mr. Haris. Time is yours.
Before I start my arguments, I will start with rebuttals for the last speaker. Well, they said something well, you're going to ban social media. Yeah, and also the previous speaker said, how are they going to do it? Well, they said they're going to ban it the moment a certain bad thing, a certain website goes into trend, website goes trending, so they will be banning it. Well, let me ask you this: how are you going to know that? How is the effects before you ban it? remember, these things go trending things suddenly. Even if you ban it after, it doesn't mean there is still like dozens of people or thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people have already seen it. Also, you're also pretty much, and the motion says this is websites we're talking about. So how about those bigger social media platforms like Instagram, maybe Instagram, YouTube? How are those bigger ones you're going to ban? You're basically saying, how about the singular post? If there's one post that says, if there is only one post that says, oh, we're going to be proliferating eating disorder, how are you going to ban the entire website? I don't think so. You're going to ban the entire website because you know that there is other posts in said website that are going to be useful. Uh, then I will go into my verification of the last speaker of the closing government. Like my first speaker said, there are thousands of websites, and you did tackle this. You said, oh, there are going to be fun. No, there are going to be fun. The budget of a single website is a lot more. You don't need IT. You don't. Well, I have to say something about that. It's very much easy to make a website. You don't need to be really fancy about it. As long as you have a decent server, you're good. Sure, you're going to be running it for a while. And how about domain names? There are like still thousands of combinations of words out there that are good domain names. But there are still going to be other websites. Doesn't mean there's only one person that keeps making these new websites. There's going to be more than one person just making websites making websites. If one person does make a website, and then you decide to ban it, and then you finally decide to ban it, well, there's 3 seconds later, there's probably a new website that people are going to move to and well start reading on that. And based on how you want to shut down these websites by waiting for them to become suddenly trending, I don't think you're going to be fast enough. I do not think you're going to be fast enough to absolutely remove every one of these websites. That is why we believe, as the closing oppositions, that this notion of banning social media that enables proliferation of eating disorder should fall. Thank you.
Okay, time spent by the second speaker of the closing opposition is 4 minutes 52 seconds. I repeat, 4 minutes 52 seconds. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for the adjudicator decision, please the contestant to leave the chamber and wait on the main.
There's only one person kan, jadi nggak ada, there will be no one talking gitu. Alright, guys, ini saya pindah ke tempat yang lain sebentar ya. Soalnya ini mau hujan deras dan saya nggak mau suara saya kemakan suara hujan. Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Ini saya ke resultnya ya. Okay, so overall this debate is pretty well. To put it softly, I was expecting substantially a better debate and better involvement from most of the people involved. This certainly could have improvements in a lot of fields, in a lot of aspects, including the characterization of a certain party, of a certain phenomenon, the dimension that you chose to argue in. Like, there are so many things that I wish to be better in this debate. And now for the ranking. As for the fourth and the third rank, it's kind of difficult and easy at the same time to determine. But in the end, we chose the fourth to fall into CO, the third into OG, the second into OO, and the first into the closing government. Now, to be brief, why do I decide the rank to be like this? As for the CO, it is simply because the scenario that they brought up and used against the model proposed by the motion and enforced mostly by the closing government is very counterintuitive. It has been the rebut has been responded by the closing government that this scenario is very unlikely because for one to create a similarly influential and grand websites over and over just to get through with the repetitive ban would take too much money, too much cost, and too much time to actually pull off and to be productive. So their case, the only case that they got is basically is on the fringes of relevancy, and it's pretty hard to give them any credit. And the responses were mostly rhetorical questions that has been disputed by the arguments coming from the opposing team. Now, why is the OG on the third here? Is because the OG has a huge burden to bear here, which mostly they fail to deliver. The OG discusses about why eating disorder is a terrible thing to adopt, which I believe should have been a no question. It's a you don't say matter. It's something that everyone should have ceded about in this debate. But the machination of their motion of why banning the websites is the best course of action, or why the trend or the or how these websites effectively influence people into following this eating disorder, and why it wasn't so much problem that it is worth to be banned. There were little to no explanation about that, nor was there any kind of machination on how they would do this or the terms in which they would do this. So the OG falls pretty low in here, and it is mostly because of their lack of fulfillment of things that they should have delivered. And the few arguments that they do give are very minimal compared to their closing. Now, the opening opposition with few burden has several arguments that involve that people will volunteer with. Sorry, saya pindah lagi. It's getting harder. The opening opposition believe that out of their own volition or out of their own wisdom, people will actually not be affected by these materials, this exposure, these trends that have an underlying influence for people to fall into the pipeline of eating disorder. Either it is because of the mukbang and such. But all of these cases, including all of these cases, has been won easily by the closing government, in which they have also already not only explained the psyche behind why people would very likely fall into this trend and explain that it actually has happened, but there is also an aspect or a dimension of a macro scale problem that the rest of the debate did not touch at all in here. And with that, CG do not only fulfill the things that the OG should have done, they have elevated the urgency to a new level, and I believe that deserves quite a substantial credit compared to the rest of the team. And that is my explanation. I hope this can be received well by all of you. Bagi yang menang, jangan besar kepala. Bagi yang kalah, jangan berkecil hati ya. And I suppose that's all from me sih.
Okay.
Kembali ke
Yes. Thank you, sir. Is that any question?
Guys, saya nggak bisa accept TA dulu ya. Ini soalnya it's kind of hard to communicate in this situation. Saya harus sembunyi nih.
Okay, sir.
And I cannot stay here for long. Di sini pengap banget gitu.
Okay, sir. The last one, sir. I want to ask about the champion itu. Yang pertama, benar, saya memastikan konfirmasi ulang. Kalau yang pertama itu dari CG.
Yes.
Yang kedua OO.
Yes.
Yang ketiga OG.
Yes.
And the last one is CO.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yo.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's all for the second preliminary round. Congratulations for the winner. Thank you for your attention, and please go back to the main chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Thank you, Judge.